Hi, it's Warren Huart here. Hope you're doing marvellously well today. As usual, please subscribe. Go to producelikeapro.com and sign up for the email list, and you'll get a whole bunch of free stuff. There's some free drum samples that I use every day, pretty much, and access to our Vimeo account. There'll be competition information. You'll get notified of any fun things that are coming up. And we've got a lot of stuff planned for the future, so please subscribe and go to the email list. Okay, so today we're going to look at in our How to Arrange series, which is sort of breaks down the production, the mix, the arrangement, everything. It's just a generic term for us looking at a song that I've recorded. Today we're going to look at Alexx Calise's song, Say It Loud. This is a song that I wrote with her, and she played guitar and I played guitar on. Greg D'Angelo played drums on, and I played bass and did some keys on. So it's a pretty awesome song, and let's check it out. Let's break it down. Let's see all the different elements. And as ever, please leave some questions down below, any comments you like. And of course, if you've got things that you want to share about how you record this, please let me know. I always learn a lot from you guys as well. As much as you would learn from me, I learn from you. Thank you. Let's check it out. Cool. So this is... what I like about this song is kind of did a 70s distorted fuzzy guitar part. We started off demoing the song and then just kind of added to it. This was never like a, do a demo, go into a studio, produce it. I mean, this is all done at my studio, Spitfire. I had fun with this. I played guitar on it, Alex played guitar. The main guitar riff, and you guys will like this, is just a DI guitar. And it's the demo guitar. I've got an electric guitar, I plugged it into Pro Tools, I went through one of the 312s over here, ran it pretty hot, as you can see from the waveforms here. I probably, that helped. It's not square waves, but, fat tone into a 312 DI guitar, very straightforward. And then I use a good old-fashioned, I say good old-fashioned because they've been around forever, Sansan play. It comes standard in Pro Tools, and there's a bit of, you can see my settings, preamp, distortion, crunch, drive, low, not the highs, but the crunch. I've then got a REQ after it, just taking out some lows gently, and then a gate. And the gate gives it that kind of on-off Jimmy Page distortion. So Jimmy Page would often on those Zeppelin recordings just plug straight into the front of the mic pre. And, sometimes with or without a distortion pedal, a fuzz pedal, and then just overdrive the mic pre. And the thing about that distortion, if you ever tried it, and we'll try it in future videos, is it kind of gives this on-off sound. It's kind of... So to simulate it, because like I said, this was the demo. It wasn't how we recorded it. To simulate that sound, I've got a gate across it. So the gate, if we listen here, is cutting in and out with the guitar. Like there, you can hear the gate coming on off. Kind of, and I like it. It's just, it sounds cheap and trashy, but that's kind of what we wanted. So we take the main guitar like that, and then on the other guitar, there's a second guitar comes in on the choruses, which is basically just doubling it. It pans hard left and hard right. But this other guitar below is just a duplicate of that guitar with a tape delay on it, giving us like a little slap. So have a listen to that. It's quietly in there, but it just gives it a little bit of width on the guitar. So let's check it out. And that's what I quite often do. I've also got a reverb down here, and I'm just using a room, large room. It's just a digi, the D-verb that comes standard with Pro Tools. And there's just a little bit of the MV2, which is like a parallel compressor in a box, a great tool. And that's panned away from the guitar to the right-hand side, just to give a little bit of ambience.
But I get to running on the floor before you know what it
the only thing that's coming in there is some logic strings. Let's make the waveforms bigger, which is Option Command bracket. And it's just following, see me coming. It's just following the lead vocal. NV2 again. It's a great plugin. Cool. Now we're getting into the pre-chorus here. Now the vocal is doing what I do all the time. Come down, I'm using our bracket tool there. We've got the distortion channel running, the octave and the whisper, just to give her a lot of personality on the vocal. But also what we're doing here is we're running, because I get asked about this all the time, running a parallel compressor. So what I've done is I've just duplicated the vocal. Now you can go to our vocal tips and you can see all of the way I use the vocal octave, the distortion, the H3000 trick, the pitch trick. You can see all of those reverbs and delays. But what's different here is I'm crushing a duplicate of the vocal with the maxing.
See me coming, but I get to running on the floor before you know what it's dry. Don't judge by my size more than meets the eye. My words can
really exaggerate, but it's just keeping this very compressed squash signal in there the whole time. It's also exaggerating the breaths, which you may not like, but I liked in this song because it frankly sounds a little sexier, it's breathier, it fits her persona and it fits the song. So this is with the two vocals together.
See me coming, but I get to running on the floor before you know. See me coming, but I get to running on the floor before you know what it's dry.
And so both those vocals are still going through the same vocal bus and they're having all the effects dealt with them. But what it's doing is it's just keeping it in your face the whole time. It's not loud. It's like 19.7 dB down from the other one. But you've got this very, very compressed vocal which is just sitting underneath. So even if she's coming down in volume or whatever, it's always there, always in your face. I get asked a lot about how to bring the vocals up front. Parallel compression is a great way to do it. Now there's many different ways of doing it, but it's easy in a DAW to just duplicate the file and then add additional compression to it and pull it up underneath. Obviously, depending on your DAW, this one we have delay compensation available. So what that does is it means that I can add plugins to this without affecting the phase, affecting the polarity. So you can have multiple signals going of the same signal with different plugins on it. I know in some DAWs I've been reading, people are leaving comments that some of their DAWs you have to calculate the delay compensation. The great thing about Pro Tools is it does it automatically. Now sometimes it can come up and be wrong, so you have to restart, but 99.9% of the time it figures it out. Just look up in Pro Tools, you can look up here, if it's red, that means the delay compensation maybe is a little off. So that's parallel compression. It's one of many ways of doing it, but it works great on this song because it gives her this kind of intensity. Okay, so here's the pre-chorus. And the drums, as usual. So we did the drums here with Greg D'Angelo using the Sapphire. If you go to the Greg D'Angelo drum video, we'll put a link underneath it. You'll see him playing on the track. So, and again, it's a combination of the drums in this room in here with some addictive drum samples put on it. We've got a small drum room, so we made them big. Obviously, Greg's a great drummer. And then that's me playing bass. I come in on the pre-chorus here. So this is the elements that change on the pre-chorus. So we go to a chugging guitar here. Single driving note. So I'm pedaling, so what I'm doing on those first two chords is I'm staying on the same na 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 as the bass changes. Just creating a little tension, and it's like finding common notes. So the bass is going down to the third of the chord on the second one, but the guitar is staying there. And then the other thing that's interesting is the strings go into this little staccato part. And they're following the chords exactly. And then there's a legato string line here. Very synthy. Using a widening plugin slightly, but not too greatly. There's also, this I like, this is the Lo-Fi plugin. Again, comes free with Pro Tools and just adds a little grit to it. Here, take it off. It's nice, clean, put it on. It just dirties it up just a little. And then the other thing I'm adding afterwards is our old friend Echo Boy, Sound Toys. I love this. The studio tape setting is great. Echo Boy is a great all-round echo plug-in. It has some great modulation effects as well. So it just makes it a little dreamier. So that swells into the break. Cool. So now the chorus has a bunch of things going on. There's some good old-fashioned guitar chords. And again, the same trick. I'm taking guitars, panning them heavy left and right, and then I'm adding reverb to the opposite direction. I do that a lot. So you've got dry guitar here, reverb to the right. And then right guitar with the reverb to the left. Add some width. And then breaks, downbeat chords. So together we get this. And they're pretty heavily compressed, so they're spanking. But here's the real fun one. I've got this line that I wrote, which is just a straightforward line, just. And what I'm doing is I'm panning left and right, and on the right-hand one, I'm adding a tape delay. So we've got a left-hand guitar here. And then same guitar is panned to the right, and there's a tape delay on it there. It just gives it some extra width, as well as using the reverb left and right. Little Echo Boy as well. We're basically adding a tiny bit of delay from the Echo Boy, a tiny bit of reverb, and then a slap. Now that sounds like a lot of stuff, but I have a tendency to do that. I like to use, you'll notice on the vocal effects, like multiple amounts of effects, but very low. That to me just gives it, I don't know, it gives it more ambience. If I was doing like a super, super pop one, I might keep it very, very clean. But for a dirty rock and roll song like this, guitar panned, say to one side with multiple effects really lightly on the other side, just gives a little ambience to me. And I'll mess around till it feels good. And it's really up to you how you want to do that. So that's the main line going through the chorus. And there is a string line here. This is that same string synth sound. Following the chords. Another one below. I'm using the Pan Man on this sound. Again, stock Logic sounds. Now this string line is following. So what that line is doing is it's following my line and the vocal line at the same time. It's kind of living between those two places.
Who I wanna be, no apologies. Die before I let you bury me.
Bury me. So it's doing down, 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 bury me. So it sits between those two worlds. It's reinforcing the vocal line and it's reinforcing the guitar line. This last one here, solo this one here, is a silly, crazy synth just for energy. Super wide, we're using the widening plugin, the PS22 spread. And then of course our old friend MV2. So those are the elements to this first chorus. There's a second line that comes in at the end, which is kind of our re-intro hook line. That is following the vocal line which we're about to hear. Now, this is where it gets fun. We went nuts on the vocals here. It's me and Alex singing. So there's a lot of stacked vocals. I mean, this is the one beautiful thing about working in digital. You know, most of this song, with the exception of these vocals here, could be done on a 24 track. We're using, you know, half a dozen key parts, some stereo guitars, 2 sets of stereo guitars. You know, we're doing a lot of things that you could do in a 24 track realm, but what you can't do, or you couldn't do easily unless you were bouncing between multiple machines like Queen did, is the harmony stuff. Now this isn't clever harmonies, we're not doing a huge amount of harmonies, but we are doing, you know, probably, you know, when I say a huge amount of different parts, we're just doing lots of them together. So here we go.
Hey, hey, you, say it loud, say it loud.
Not perfect by any means.
You, say it loud, say it loud. Hey, hey.
And that's the thing with a gang vocal, you kind of want the roughness, not to be too perfect. And then as far as effects are concerned, I've got a good old-fashioned D-verb there.
Hey, hey, you, say it loud, say it loud. Hey, hey, you, say it loud, say it loud.
And that's really kind of all we need to give it kind of the hugeness that it's got in there. So it's a lot. Like I said, you know, the wonderful thing about DAWs is we could have got this, you know, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24 vocals going on here. You know, and you could bust this down if you're running out of tracks and everything and just bounce them down to a stereo file. But that's basically, you know, verse, chorus of the song. Now, if we get into the second verse, the only thing that's really changing here.
Don't pass over me, I'm quite a good read. So
Bring in this really cool kind of like 16th note bass line idea. It's like a cheap, almost 8-bit synth sound. Quite 80.
So don't you judge this book.
And again, string line following the lead vocal.
Don't pass over me, I'm quite a good read. So don't you judge this book by its cover. Miscalculate me, I'll make you believe I may be sweet, I sure ain't.
Same idea in the pre-chorus. Comes a swell. So just a third above harmony with the double here.
Who I wanna be, no
Below is our vocal thickening trick.
before I let you bury me. Who I wanna be, no apologies. Down before I let you bury.
We'll put the link to the vocal thickening trick in there with all the other vocal stuff. So that's pretty straightforward. So the second verse is really just about dropping down to that line. The bass line is me playing, is super dumb. You know, in this song, I'm not doing anything massively clever. I'm just in the... Just climbing down with a third in the bass on that second, going up on that. As far as the chorus is concerned, just root notes. I've got a Sans amp driven bass. So I just took the amp here and put a Sans amp on it just to give it some grit. Cool, so coming out of the second chorus, it goes back to the riff for a second. So here in the bass line, I had some sort of a Joy Division moment for a second. Going to Duran Duran, Planet Earth. So it had some fun. It's kind of a little 80s retro in there. The guitars are very straightforward. Again, just Sans amp. That's very straightforward. That's just Sans amp guitars. So far, the only amp guitars we've used, live ones, are the chorus, chugs, and rakes. Everything else is just a Sans amp guitar. So you can do it with plugins quite easily. Now, the only other elements that are different in the bridge is I've got a slightly different key line, obviously, because it's a different chord sequence, sorry. Not following exactly. Okay, so coming out of this bridge, there's a swell. Now, this is the big deal, the last chorus. It modulates. We go up. So if you have a listen. It just brings energy to the track. I mean, it's a repetitive chorus. It's fun. You know, the hey, say it loud part is cool, and it's like a gang vocal. But I found to give extra energy to this track, and we don't always do it, obviously. Be judicious about doing key changes and modulations, but it just felt good on this song to do it. So basically, we took all of the ideas we had before. It's essentially the same thing. The only thing we're doing is we're adding an extra harmony just for energy here. What I've done here is I've gone above on the harmony, so now an additional harmony comes in just to give it a little bit more energy in this last chorus. And then on the chorus double out here, a slightly more developed synth part here, a bit more energy. String line. Following the say it louds. And all the rest of the energy is coming from the drums, just going nuts there. Greg, like, really going for it at the end.
Gotta be a test to see what I'm made of. Underestimation's fuel for my fire. Who I wanna be, no apologies. Down before I let you bury me. Who I wanna be, no apologies. Down before I let you bury me. Who I wanna be, no apologies. Down before I let you bury me. Who I wanna be, no apologies. Down before I let you bury me.
Great, so we'll include the links below to the other videos explaining the vocal thickening trick, and of course the vocal tips video where you can see the different effects for the octave and the whisper and the distortion that I do. what I liked about that song, and I know I talk about this often in the How to Arrange series, is we were writing the song, in the room here, and I had a DI guitar plugged into Pro Tools, and as we were writing it, I played the DI down. So with the exception of 2 guitar parts, which is the chugging and the rakes, everything else is just a DI with a SansAmp plugin on it. And we're adding some multi-effects there. And I think we talked about this before, and other people have mentioned it in when using amp simulations or distortion plugins and stuff. If you put a bit of ambience on them, like a little bit of slap, lightly, and some room tones, you can kind of convince the listener that they might be listening to like a fuzz pedal into an amp. And of course, I started off with the idea of trying to make it sound a bit like Jimmy Page, so that main riff has a gate on it to have that on-off effect. So as ever, please leave some comments below, any questions you might have, and of course, any suggestions you have about how you record this kind of stuff, especially using plug-in amp simulations. SansAmps have been around forever, but as you can tell, it sounds good in the right situation. I used to use Amp Farm, there's Amplitude, the Audio Salt plugins, Decapitator. There's a lot of great ones out there. So please let me know what you use, and let's have a great discussion about it. Thank you ever so much for watching, and check back soon.